with us today Dr. Casey George, the Director of NIP-CCD, a strong advocate in the field of women and child rights. He is a professional trainer and advocates social work, including promotion of greater awareness of the NGO system in India. His words, "I am busy, but I have time for you," is an inspiration for all of us. We are also graced with the presence of Professor Vinod C. Menon, who was formerly the Chief of Emergency in the UNICEF in India and joined as Senior Professor and Head of the School of Compassion, Peace, Humanitarian Action and Disaster Risk Management at MIT World Peace University, Pune. He is also the founder of the National Disaster Management Authority, and now he is acting as a consultant who is actively involved in various social issues in the country. He works tirelessly and around the clock in order to alleviate the sufferings of his fellow citizens. We also welcome eminent members of the DMCI, Dr. Sakhi John, Dr. Rashmi Bhaskaran, and Mr. Subbu Rahman, as well as Advocate Manoj V. George, for supporting our venture and guiding us whenever we needed their help and advice. I would now like to introduce the team of Solicitors India Law Offices. We have Advocate Deepak Prakash, lead partner with us, with over 25 years of experience. Advocate Lakshmi Kant, partner and the voice of reason of the team. Our associates, Raneev Dahiya, Nachiketa Vajpayee, Divyangana Malik, Jessica Bhardwaj, and Prerna Robin. We welcome the Chief Coordinator of SAT, Kanika Agrawal, who has birthed the idea of SAT into existence. And now we welcome the trainer for this session, Advocate Vaman Kumar, who is a practicing lawyer in the High Court of Kerala. As the founder president of Fraternity of Professional Trainers and Mentors, the largest organization of professional trainers in Kerala, he is an expert in this field. He is also a chairperson for National Skill Development Committee of JCI India. He has been awarded with the Ravi Puraskar, JCI India's National Award for the Best Trainer in 2007. He is very active in the field of training with an experience of 28 years. He has conducted more than 3,500 training programs for individuals, organizations, and employees of companies in more than 25 countries. We welcome all of you today, and we are graced by your presence in this session. I would now like to invite Sir Kurian Joseph to say a few words of inspiration for all of us.
Thank you so much, Prerna, for the wonderful words of welcome. Yeah, one good morning to all of you, my dear friend Alphonse Kannanthanam, Advocate Deepak Prakash, Vinod Chandra Menon, Dr. Casey George, Sri Subbu Rahman, INDS, Manoj Kumar, Manoj George, Rashmi. I can see quite a few from that side. And our dear Advocate Vaman Kumar, who is going to be the man of the day for us to train all of us. Yeah, first of all, let me congratulate the SAT and all the associates therein for taking up this initiative, for defining our role in society, our place in society, and our call in society. As our dear friend Alphonse always used to tell the youngsters, why are we here on earth at all? Yes, I'm sure he will also have a wonderful, he's also a non-wonderful motivator, so we can also listen from him also. Since Prerna referred to the brotherhood, let's touch upon that only and then leave the rest to the platform for the eminent men coming for us. We have a chapter called the chapter part 4A in the Constitution of India. It's called the Fundamental Duties. It's Article 51A of the Constitution of India. The first fundamental duty is to abide by the constitution and respect the ideals, the national flag and the national anthem. Abide by the constitution. Abide by the constitution means be law-abiding citizens. Unfortunately, we are witnessing a generation where people take pride not in following law, but in breaking law. Nobody takes pride in following law or abiding by law and a law-abiding citizen. So, my dear youngsters, my ardent request to all of you is, if we want to serve the nation, first of all, we ourselves should be law-abiding. Nobody should be in a position to say that, that so-and-so has no respect for law and he does not follow any law. He only preaches law, but never practices law. So this is a time for introspection for all of us, that how much are we committed to follow the footsteps of law-abiding citizens, respect law and follow law and promote the course of law. The other fundamental duty of the 11 I wanted to stress is one, that is 51AE, to promote harmony and the spirit of common brotherhood amongst all people of India, transcending religious, linguistic, and regional or sectorial diversities. Well, we are passing through trying times for the country, where we are all divided in terms of our caste, color, creed, community, religion, language, sex, and whatnot. These are all the diversities, of which India should be proud of. With all these diversities, India is India because this constitution has provided space for all diversities and making it a beautiful garden of all the diversities. And without this diversity, India is not India at all. Look at the beauty of Himalayas on this side, valleys on the other side, river on this side, sea on three sides. And you can see all types of flora and fauna in India, all world-renowned religions in India, 22 scheduled languages, and 844 recognized dialects. The cultural diversities, the different civilizations. With all that, we are one India. And all Indians are our brothers and sisters. Irrespective of all this, to this great status and stature, we should all grow up. To see every other person, every other citizen, to treat every other citizen as a fellow citizen, as a brother or sister, irrespective of any other differences. So we must all, at least the people who are getting trained today or part of this, should be in a position to rise above our casteism, communalism, and we should be absolutely free from corruption and be people of integrity, a disciplined lot of people. And just one more and I leave it that. That is 51AJ. To strive towards excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity so that the nation constantly rises to higher levels of endeavor and achievement. This is the nation building. No, we belong to this nation and this is our nation. This is my nation. So I cannot keep myself away from building the nation. I have to participate in the process of building nation. So how do I participate? I participate in striving for excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity. Whatever I do, I should do the best. I should be the best. If we just take oath, and I'm sure, I think ministers also take the oath, say, to the best of our ability, information, knowledge, and belief. Ability, information, knowledge, and belief. We have to give the best on all these four aspects. So give our best in all these aspects of ability, knowledge, information, and belief. Then we will be in a position to participate as best as possible in the process of national building. This is our call. After all, the nation gives us so much, Yes, it has given us security. It has given all sorts of liberty to be a free citizen in this country. It protects my life. With all that, what do I pay back? I pay back my little role in building the nation. So thank you very much. I'm sure my speech is not what is you are all eagerly waiting for, but these are the general aspects which I thought I should stress today, because we should all become responsible citizens of the country, fully conscious of our fundamental duties and discharging those duties to the best of our ability, knowledge, information, belief. Thank you. All the best.
Interns are from the law background, sir. Actually, all of them. Actually, I'm expecting 100 people, but we are already on 209 right now, sir. Most of them are, because of your presence is a very high value for this, sir. Sir, right now I am request Alphonse sir to deliver to address this meet, sir. This is Alphonse sir.
Honorable Justice Kurian Joseph, senior members of Distress Management Collective India, Mr. Vaman Kumar, Advocate Deepak Prakash, Prerna, and my young friends. Very happy to be here. I think after the words of wisdom from Justice Kurian Joseph, I don't really need to speak more. Let me tell you a little story in 2 minutes, and that's it, because I don't give advices. Not to my wife, not to my children. I don't give advices. If they want to learn something from my life, from what I do, I think that's fine. But there was this old man walking on the beach, and there was very strong waves. So thousands of little fish was getting washed ashore. And there was this old man picking up one fish out of these thousands which were just getting washed ashore, and he would throw it into the sea. Then he would bend again and pick up another fish and throw it into the sea. And there was this group of young people who were passing by. They're very curious. What is this old man doing? There are thousands and lakhs of fish there dying, and he's picking up one fish and he's throwing it into the sea. So they went to the old man and said, you are a lunatic. You are crazy. What are you doing? Don't you see there are thousands of fish dying out there, maybe lakhs, maybe millions, and you're picking up one and you think you're doing a great job? He didn't say anything. He just looked at them. Then he bent. He picked up another fish, threw it into the sea, and he told them, I have made a difference. Simple story. I can give you a 2-hour lecture on this story. What are the lessons? My dear kids, be that old man making a difference in the life of that one fish. Maybe 2, maybe 100. You and I are not Jesus Christ or Lord Ram or Krishna or Muhammad to save the universe. We are here to do the little things that we can do with our lives, which are actually miracles. You can do miracles with your life. That old man on the beach was doing a miracle, providing life to that one fish, 2 fish. So let's not look for the big canvas. The canvas is right in your home, in your neighborhood, in your law chamber. And just because you are lawyers and the lawyer community, I'm also a lawyer, incidentally. Though I was an IAS officer and MLA, a minister, and now an MP, I'm also a lawyer. The lawyer community has become so inaccessible today. I'm very sorry to say. How many people can afford to file a petition come to the Supreme Court? Because some of the lawyers charge 1 crore, some 50 lakhs, 10 lakhs. Is there any senior advocate who charges less than 10 lakhs? Is the objective of life only money? Irrespective of religions, is the only God we worship money? That is what is come to India. In the United States, it's not a country I hugely admire. 40% of people contribute to charity. What's the percentage in India? Less than 1%. In the US, after college or in between college or after school, they have a choice to join the national service. It was something which President Kennedy introduced. Millions of young people join the national service. Here, you have an internship of 1 year, which I think is only in Kerala for medical doctors. If they want to do the postgraduate examination, they need to do 1 year of internship in the rural area. Oh my God, there's such a hue and cry, 1 year of my life wasted. Instead, couldn't they look at it and say, this is 1 year of my life, which is most precious. When I'm reaching out to people, I'm still young. My dear kids, believe in this. You have to change the world. It's not a prime minister. As Justice Kurian Joseph pointed out in the Constitution, the responsibilities enshrined in the Constitution. You are the person, not the prime minister, not the ministers, not MPs, not chief ministers. It's you who can change the world. Believe in that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. We just heard a person, whatever he's saying, he's practiced in his life. And a young boy who scored only 45% of marks in 10th class. And he's
42, Deepak, correction, 42.
So 42% in 10th class, he's securing the first rank or the top rank in the IAS in after a few years. So whatever Alphonse sir is saying, he's practicing, is a very good inspiration to us. He's a role model for all the young people. And sir is not giving motivation. Sir is himself is a motivation. Just to say, sir, much thankful to you for sir your presence and your kind words, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Prerna, you're there?
Yes, sir.
Please.
We would now like to invite Dr. K.C. George to enlighten us with a few words of his wisdom.
George sir is joined. Are you verified that?
Yes, sir, he said he would join. Kanika, can you please check?
Prerna, he's not here, right? We can move
All
on.
right. All right.
I think we have Commander Prasanna. Let George sir is joined. We can call Commander Prasanna. He's another inspiration for the entire the ladies who are here. She's an inspiration for the entire ladies. We have Commander Prasanna. Prasanna, madam, can you just sit first?
Good morning to one and all present over here. Respected Justice Kurian sir, Alphonse sir, and executive members, committee members of DMCI, and my dear young friends. I won't be taking much of your time. You all are waiting to listen from Advocate Vamana Kumar, who has been very inspirational and motivational in developing the youth and motivating them to do well in their respective career. And I give you a small brief about myself. I am a retired commander from Indian Navy from the 3rd batch of women officers. I joined as an air traffic controller in Indian Navy. I believe job as an air traffic control officer is one of the toughest job in the world in terms of the stress level. I will not be covering up much on that particular issue. What motivated me was I had set a goal in my life and I worked towards it. So I request all of you to have some aim in life and work towards it with a lot of passion and determination and perseverance. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to share a very small experience. And let's continue with our talk with Advocate Vamana Kumar. Thank you.
Commander Prasanna is the executive member of Distress Management Collective India. And just I am requesting Mr. Manoj Kumar, who is the state coordinator for Kerala and the executive member of Distress Management Collective India, to address, please. So Manoj Kumar, please.
Good morning, all of you. I am Manoj Kumar here. I am right now in Kerala, though I am working in Delhi for Ministry of Finance. I am also a part of DMCI, the big movement of this charity organization. Respected Kurian sir, Alphonse sir, and all distinguished guests, and the chief guest of today's program, Advocate Vamana Kumar. He is not advocate for me; he was my guru. In fact, he took care of me during my college days when I was struggling for graduation, and I was also like Alphonse sir. I was struggling in PUC. When I got 40%, I took a management quota in graduation in the college, and I got 2nd rank in BSc. When I was struggling in BSc first year, I think he took care of me. He was not teaching me syllabus, but he was teaching me how to go ahead. Like a very good inspiration and very good motivator, Mr. Vamana Kumar. He was my guru and teacher. I think we are all waiting for his words. Let us all, listen him. I have only one thing to say to the young friends. Like what we do, small things, it makes a big difference. That is what I have learned from my experience. Though we feel that it's a small things, but it doesn't matter. But the small things makes a big difference in the society, and we should be part of that difference. So all the best wishes for this today's program, and thank you for inviting me for this program. Thank you.
Prerna, please continue.
We also welcome Professor Vinod C. Menon. Is Vinod sir here?
Yes.
That's why I'm checking, sir.
Yes, sir. He was there. So he
Yes, I'm here.
Yes.
Vinod sir, if you could please enlighten these young individuals with all the amazing work that you do.
No, actually, I think all of us are waiting to listen to Advocate Vamana Kumar, who has already addressed about 3,500 sessions and inspired and motivated a lot of young people. I would like to just compliment the network, SARC, and also all the volunteers and all the interns, all the people who are actually participating in this whole movement, because I came to know about the power of the Legal Services Authority, from at the national level, at the state level, at the district level, and the taluka level. And all of you will be able to play a role in ensuring that the people who are affected by disasters, like what we saw during the current COVID situation, when millions of people were traveling across states. And we have been witnessing that even today, actually, we have been receiving phone calls, and just now while we were here, we were getting a message about people who were stranded in Kerala, in Kasaragod and Palakkad, and who have to travel back to Jharkhand. So there is a whole system of support services required for the people who are affected by disasters. And then Section 12B of the Act, actually, I'm sure you'll actually get to know more about it, for the people affected by disasters. And if migrant workers, we've seen that the tragic death of many of those people who were actually crushed by the railway trains, or by road accidents, or even by death in the trains, railway trains. 80 people died in the Shramik trains, and 36 people, women, gave birth to children in the Shramik trains. So I think 52 lakh people, 5.2 million people were carried in about more than 4,000 trains. So it is a huge challenge, actually. And then a lot of people have been working towards supporting these initiatives, and many of them are here also, volunteers. And I would like to just appeal to all of you to be like what Justice Kurian Joseph sir said, and also what Mr. Alphonse said. If we could actually be able to reach to the people, and then wipe the tears of the people who are affected, and that would be the major contribution which all of you will be able to make together to strengthen democracy, to uphold the values which we all stand for. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I'm listening. I'll be happy to be listening to all this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the inspiration that you've always been to us. We also have Sir K.C. George with us, and we request him to say a few words for us. Thank you.
Good morning, honorable seniors. And I wasn't there in the beginning. I was in a meeting. I just came, and respected all seniors who are here, and all those volunteers who are associated with the social work sector to do something positive. Social work is basically defined as an act of helping someone to help someone. It is an act of helping somebody to help himself. Please understand, helping somebody to help himself. So it is not getting something to be done for himself. We are only encouraging him, we are only incapacitating him, we are only helping him so that he is able to have a sustainable life, or livelihood rather. So the concept of charity is not that is going to come to our mind when we are there as a social worker. So social worker has very twin responsibility. One is he should be able to understand the role that he is in. I'm only there to support. I'm only there to mobilize resources. I'm only there to motivate that gentleman. I'm only there to enrich his capacity, or rather incapacitate him. Or as we say in the Chinese proverb, we are there to teach the method of fishing rather than giving him the fish. So it is not giving him a fish to eat or giving him a meal for a day. That is not the question of the social work concept that we have. We have had the social work professional schools way back in 1936 with Tata Institute, and by 1980s we had about 36 schools in our country teaching professional social work to people. Now anybody who wishes to become a professional social work, as always Justice Kurian says about service and the seva that you do, there is a difference. Here we are doing not exactly that kind of a service which is being paid for. You are doing a seva. That is why, like Baba Amte ki case le lo, you take any kind of such big dignitaries, big people who became for their social work concept, people who carried the human shit on their head. I mean, the kind of commitment towards the society starts from the change of your mindful act of helping somebody. Now, that has to come from within to help somebody. So, the basic factor of helping somebody cannot come from the books. The basic fact of helping somebody to help himself will come from your own within. Only your heart can tell you the sensitivity that you have within. So, sensitivity is something that will tell you what I am going to say in future. One example I'll give you. We all go to Daba. Chota sa ek shop hoti hai. And we are there, and a child comes and provides you a cup of water. And he puts his fingers into the water, that glass, and when he brings it to you, you fire him. He said, you are not supposed to do that. You are not supposed to put your fingers into the water and the glass. It should be clean. We think about, hygiene and sanitation and all that. Now, hygienic activity is not there, that immediately strike you. So you scold him. Bring water in the right appropriate manner. Don't bring 2-3 glasses together. Bring one by one. Now the second approach is, when you have had your cup of tea, then you say, Chotu chai acha da, to him. That is, he has a name. He would like to be called by his name. He would like to be addressed by his name. That doesn't happen. Now this is something which really hints. We are there having a cup of tea and call him Chotu, and we'll still continue with the word. And whereas, if you have a sensitivity towards the cause of a child rights in your life at all, you will call him by his name. You will ask him what exactly is your name better. So that brings a very close relationship between you and the Chotu. So the concept of Chotu get diminished and deleted from that life, and you address him there. So that is called sensitivity. We go to restaurants. Food that costs you hardly about 150, they charge you about 700 or 737. They give a bill, and you pay that 737. You don't argue there whether that food is worth 700 or something. And apart from that, whatever is left out of the 800, you give it as a tip to that fellow. Correct. So you give 800 rupees to the waiter, and then you, with a smile, you come out and you take a rickshaw to reach your home. When you hire a rickshaw, that rickshaw fellow will ask you, give me 30 bucks so that I can make you reach home. When there our sensitivity come again, then you become very sensitive. How can you charge me for 30 bucks? It only costs you about 15 bucks. And then we have the argument process coming in there. You say that, no, you are not supposed to take 15 rupees more from me because I know the rate. Why are you asking at this time 30 bucks? And you argued. You never argued when 150 food was given to you for 700 in the restaurant and you gave a tip apart from that. So that is something is called sensitivity. So as a social worker, if you're going to work, the first and foremost thing that you need to create is sensitivity within you towards the human being who are suffering outside your life. So that sensitivity is to be created, and that cannot be purchased. We always tell, we talk about sensitizing law enforcement agency. We conduct many programs on gender sensitization across the country. For the last 4 months, I have organized about 200 programs and we have trained about 50,000 people. But as a trainer, I always tell, the first and foremost thing is that think whom are you giving the training. You should understand your client list. What is this client list? You need to study them. Study the client list that is in front of you. When gender sensitization comes, I tell, sir, it is not the ACP or above that I have to train. I need to train those downward people who are sitting at the police station to write the complaint that you are going to receive. I said there must be a person who is called a reader or a writer there at the police station. He should be trained on sensitivity. A woman who is approaching the police station to file a complaint and then she is able to tell that something like a physical assault has happened on her or a sexual assault has happened on her, and she is able to tell him what exactly happened with all the courage that has been summed up with her and a companion that came along with him. If that person sitting at the counter give a sarcastic smile on her face or sarcastic look at that person who came to complain, he is giving a sarcastic smile to his colleague and seeking an answer which is cannot be answered by that woman, sensitivity doesn't come in there. So the first and foremost thing that is requisite need of a social worker who does for the community is the sensitivity. This is what is important. Second thing is that never ever give false promises. The one which you cannot accomplish, please never do that. Because we are used to the concept of offering promises. We have learned, like every politician in our country says they are social workers. They are not. Social work is a professional attitude towards helping somebody to help themselves. Now they are helping someone that your case is. Now the promises that you comes up. Everybody who is born on earth are social service minded people. They are not social workers. When you as a category of 250 people make or consider yourself as a social worker or an intern who are inclined to do some humanitarian work towards the cause of the society, then we need to think what are the good qualities that you have. You have to have. So I said about one is never give false promises, which cannot happen. I cannot say that, okay, I'll talk to the collector and I'll get you this done. No, absolutely not. You cannot do that. Once you give that promise, the recipient at that place will be thinking, okay, fine, he has promised me, I'm going to get it. And we have the habit of doing that. Okay, sir, main dekh lunga, I'll do that. And things which we cannot do, please don't commit. And we know that it cannot be done. Don't ever commit it. That is my second option. Third is that be with them. There is something called a rapport building. You need to have a very good rapport, a confidence building with that person. Now a person, example I'll tell you, in the very recent past, there came to me a family who wanted to divorce. They were at the verge of big conflict. They didn't want to continue their life. Now issue is that any counselor, any person who needs your support is not to disintegrate them. It is not for you to make them apart. It is for you to bring them together. So bringing them together needs again a social work attitude, help them to understand what are the goals. Sometimes I sit with my wife. I ask her, tell me 5 qualities of mine. Or I tell her, you have this qualities which I like. Ask someone about that. What are your good qualities? Now to bring out a very code of relationship between two in a family, what is important is to understand how much the other person holds for you. And that family who came to me, they said, only that person was drinking. I said, fine. We'll approach an attitude how we can control his drinking. Now, how do you control your drinking habit or alcoholism? How do you control it? There are many ways. We can put him into a de-addiction center. We can have counseling for, taking away the habit of drinking. Why does he drink? We need to have a complete thorough study of what makes you go into an addiction. Now this addiction is to be controlled. That is what we want. So both of them were counseled about 4 times, and happily I could say even today that family could reunite. They're living together. So the point is that we are there to unite people, not to disintegrate. So please keep all these 3 principles that I told you. Study the person thoroughly, study the need, and see what I can give. And everybody born on this earth has some potential within themselves. And that is made to be giving to somebody else. It is not for self-centered attitude. It is for others. And we are living for others. The society is a combination of several people. Earlier we used to tell that a person who cannot be living in a society used to be thrown out to somewhere like Andaman in our East India Company times. I've seen those jail there. I mean, it is very difficult to survive in that situation. There we was told all those people who cannot be living in a society or they are called antisocial can never ever be here. Therefore, unko leke wahan par dal do. Put them far away from this place that is called island. Wahan se wo tair ke nahi aayega. He will not come swimming across all the ocean across to the mainland. That is why they were put there. But we want to have a society where all are equal and all have the sense of belongingness, and which you can do. You all are educated. You all have the potential. You all have the knowledge. You have the information. You have the access to the resources and control over the resources. Then you can then decide. You are at an age appropriate. You can decide for going ahead. So it is not in getting the word social service, but the social work that is professional in nature. And I am sure you group of people can do wonders. When it is 250, at least 10 people, if you can do wonders for 1 month, the number of people that you serve in 1 month, in a year will be uncountable. I did not spend even a single day of mine sitting at home during this lockdown. Every day I was out. People told me to take care. You put mask, you keep the social distancing, you have the sanitizer with you. All these we took, and then we were in villages, we were serving food, we were everywhere. Nothing happened. Then there is always somebody who will protect you. Have that spiritual attitude to people. Somebody will protect you. Many people ask me, if you go like this, what will happen to your family? What will happen to you? You can also be a vulnerable person who could catch COVID and all that. No. You do your service, you do it, somebody will protect you, but take precautions so that you don't catch the disease. And fortunate enough, I haven't got any such thing. I work very hard. So that satisfaction when you do for others, that is literally the word social work. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to interact. I could not join you in the beginning, and I will not be able to join you further. Thank you so much, Deepak Prakashji, and all those my seniors who are here. Thank you.
Thank you, George sir, for joining. George sir is the Joint Director of National Institute of Public Cooperation in PCD. Thank you for coming and giving your very resourceful.
Gentlemen, there is a Chinese proverb. If you want happiness for an hour, go for a nap. If you want happiness for 1 day, go for fishing. If you want happiness for 1 year, inherit good fortune. If you want happiness throughout your life, go and help someone out. This Chinese proverb is actually giving us a great insight into the value of service to humanity, service to others. That's the only way you and me can be happy all throughout our life. In 1976, 4 junior college students of Ireland, they formed and they started a rock band. And the name of the rock band was U2. And in the rock band, there were 4 members in the band, and Bono was the lead singer. There was a bass guitarist called Adam Clayton, and Adam Clayton became somewhat psychologically depressed, and he started consuming alcohol every day. Or rather, he became an addict to alcohol. And the other 3 members found it very difficult to manage him, but he was a very talented guitarist. In 1986, they got an invitation to tour the United States of America. And in a city called Tempe in Arizona, they got an invitation to do 2 of their stage shows. April 3rd and 4th of 1986, Tempe, Arizona. They reached 1 week back. They wanted to see the settings, everything. And 3 days back, the commencement of the program, Bono, the lead singer, got a telephonic message, and that was a death threat. And the message threatened him that in their 6th album they released the previous year, there was a sensational world-renowned song. And the name of the song was The Pride. The song was heralding the heroic sacrifice Martin Luther King Jr. did. And it was something talking about, singing about the against the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. It was a very sensational song. So the death threat message came to Bono, the lead singer, from somebody unknown, an American, evidently a white American. The threat was that if you sing that song, I will shoot and kill you. They became totally frightened. The FBI was contacted, but the police told them that we cannot do anything at this last moment. There are only 2 options to you. Either you cancel the whole program or you don't sing that song. The 4 members of the YouTube rock band team discussed, and the leader, the head of the team, Bono, the singer, told, I'm neither going to cancel the program nor going to stop singing that song. We will do the program, I will sing that song. First day, nothing happened. And they came back room highly relieved. But their program manager, the local American, told that tomorrow, April 4th, is the anniversary of the assassination of Martin Luther King. And tomorrow, that guy may be waiting for tomorrow, such a big important day, to kill you. And 4th of April 1986, the program started, and Bono wanted to sing the song The Pride, the last song of that whole program. And he was very sure, damn sure, that somebody will definitely come and shoot him on the chest and he is going to die. And he knew it was going to be his last song. So he put his heart and soul into the song, and he made a marvelous, outstanding, mind-blowing performance, my dear friends. But he did one thing. He closed his eyes all throughout the song because he didn't want somebody shooting on his chest and the blood is gushing out. He sang the song full time closing his eyes. But when he completed the song, he heard the clapping sound of the audience, and then he opened. Nobody shot at him. And what did he see, you know? The alcoholic addict and the member who was very difficult to be controlled, the bass guitarist Adam Clayton, was standing all the time during that song, just in front of Bono the singer, just like a shield, just like a security commando. He was standing, he was covering the whole body of Bono because Bono was singing with his eyes closed. And Adam Clayton was playing the guitar, and he was standing, turning his back all the time to the audience. That is what Bono saw. Bono couldn't control his emotions, and he literally fell on the body of Adam Clayton. I very honestly believe that the people who do the very selfless social service are falling in the category of Adam Claytons. You are safeguarding the underprivileged. You are supporting the distressed. You are supporting the less fortunate. And you are ready to sacrifice whatever you have. You are ready to give up whatever you have in order to support the family, in order to support the society and the community that really deserves your help. So I salute each member of SAAD who is just like an Adam Clayton to me. 9/11 tragedy, all of us know. Delta Airlines flight number 15, Delta 15, was flying from Frankfurt to Atlanta. After airport, don't come to America. And they contacted the nearest airport in Canada, Genter Airport. And Genter Airport easily gave permission, without any discussion, gave permission. There were 218 passengers on board. The pilot announced that there are some technical problems or complaints, so you please remain. We are landing in the nearby airport, that is Genter in Canada. And the passengers informed that you have to remain on board in the aircraft and you have to sleep here only because the problem will be taken some more time. So they were all started blaming and accusing and shouting and all. But after some time, the pilot announced that It so happened the World Trade Center is collapsed. Many airports are under threat. So we are not safe to land in America. And Gender is a city, a small city, which has total population of 10,000. But 53 flights landed there and 10,500 people had to be given protection, shelter for at least 2-3 days. Delta 15 flight, the 216 people, the cabin crew were taken to a hotel. All the passengers taken to a city called Levisport, a small village called Levisport that is 45 miles away from Gender. And the whole school buildings were converted into dormitories, and the entire villages were cooking food. They were serving them, and special medical care was given to the need and the sick and the old people. And the next day, they were taking them for excursion to the cruise or to trekking. 2 days, my dear friends, the very small population of that Levisport village, they took care of the 218 passengers like goats. And on the 3rd day, they were taken back to the airport. Everybody, by the time they came to the flight, they became so close and they were calling each other by names. It was just like a funny excursion to them. They were all so happy. They all knew each other very well. And when the flight had a good takeoff, a Virginian businessman went to the cabin crew head and requested him to make an announcement. Never ever normally passengers are given the privilege to make announcements in aircrafts. The aircraft head, the cabin crew head, gave him the mic. And he told, my dear friends, the people of Levisport took care of us just like goats, and they really proved what is hospitality is all about. We want to do something for the students of that place. Every one of you, please write in a piece of paper, we are going to start a new trust. And the name of the trust is Delta 15 Trust. Every one of you, please write how much money you can donate, so that that money we will use to support the education of the youngsters of this Levisport city, college education of the children. Whatever money you 217 people are together giving, I will take that much of amount of money. And my dear friends, he was a businessman from Virginia, and they all wrote in small piece of paper, $100, $200, $500, $1,000. They could collect almost 21,000 American dollars. And this gentleman put that much. And he told, I will write to the corporate office of Delta Airlines. Let us ask them also to contribute something equally. And the amount went up to 1.5 million. And with that 1.5 million, they have given higher studies and college education to 123 students of Levisport, that small village, that took care of them that 2 days and 3 days and 2 nights. A big movement started. A very big movement. Even now, Delta Trust Fund is being continued. A big movement started from an idea that came incubated in the mind of a Virginian businessman. And that is what I'm telling. All social service begins from your mind. It must start from your mind first. That is what you have to do. Friends, Anne Frank, the sensational young author, whose diary was published in more than 50 languages in the world, who died in the Nazi concentration camp at a very young age, she has beautifully told a sentence. No one has ever become poor by giving. No one has ever become poor by giving. I'm today giving my 1 hour or 1 hour 15 minutes time because Manoj introduced me to DMCI, and I just thought there's a divine providence and a great opportunity to me to at least see Kurian Joseph sir, the legendary justice, or Alphonse sir, a great motivator and a wonderful civil servant. And I could also get an opportunity to meet my friends like Deepak Prakash. I in fact thought it is a program of DMCI only, directly only. That is why I jumped and told Deepak Prakash, I am ready to do this program, even though he invited me day before yesterday. I have 3-4 online programs today, but I agreed because I want to be a contributing member of this DMCI. But okay, Sati is also doing something good. I don't have any regrets. So I'm giving my time. All of us are giving service. All of us are giving to the society, and we will never become poor by giving, my dear friends. That is the quintessence of service. There are lots and lots of umpteen number of definitions on leadership. But one definition that impressed me the most is the definition on leadership given by the 6th President of the United States of America, John Quincy Adams. The definition is, if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. Yes, what a powerful, meaningful definition to leadership. to all the volunteers of SAT, I am telling you, out of the 4 things, that is inspiring other people to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, I believe you are actually inspiring people to do more, inspiring people to dream more, inspiring people to learn more, inspiring people to become more. So each and every volunteer in this organization called the SAT, I call you as a leader. You are the leaders of social service. Continue this activity. You know, Francis M. Cosgrove Jr. once said, think serve, not lead. What is happening? Whenever we start a new organization, everybody is very keen to know what is my position. Everybody wants to know about my designation. What position I am getting, what designation I am getting. People are crazy about positions, posts, and designations. That is not good leadership, my dear friends. I'm sorry, that is not good leadership. Think serve, not to lead. Always think to serve, not to lead. Leaders are leaders because they are the greater servants. Leaders become leaders only because they are the greater servants of the society. So even if the volunteers of SAT do not have a particular nomenclature to call you as a president, secretary, convener, coordinator, state or region head, district head, nothing is needed, my dear friends. Nothing is needed. No titles are needed for you to serve. You will become the leader only if ready to serve the society at large. The way up is down. If you want to go up in your life and service, you have to go down first. That means go to the level of the ordinary people whom you are serving. Go to the level of the people who are requiring and people who look for your service. That is what you have to go. You have to go down, my dear friends. My dear friends, rivers do not drink their water. Yes or no? Yes. Trees do not eat their fruits. Yes. Rain clouds do not eat the grains they rear. Yes. So what do these 3 statements really make us think or make us serious about, conscious about? The wealth of the noble is used solely for the benefit of others. The wealth of the noble, if you have some wealth with you and if you are a noble person, that wealth has to be used solely, exclusively for the benefit of others. That is what actually the power of serving people, the power of giving to others. You have to ask, wherever you are giving something to the society, you have to ask a few questions. Question number 1, when should one give? You want to ask a question, when should one give? What is the time for me to serve the society? What is the time for me to give back to the society? Second one, how much to give? Okay, how much should I give? How much should I part with the society? How much of my time, how much of my energy, how much of my wealth, how much of my creativity, thinking, leadership? Second question. Third question, what to give? I don't know what exactly I can give back to the society. Fourth one, whom to give? Who is the person deserving my help or my service? So whom to give? That is question number 4. Fifth one, how to give? I'm ready to give. I know the person to give. I know how much to give, but the problem is that I don't know how to give. So how to give is the 5th question. And the last and final question, my dear friends, what should one feel after giving? After giving something to a deserving person, what should one person feel? My presentation will revolve around these 6 questions for another 30 minutes or so. When should one give? There is a story in Mahabharata. One day, a beggar went to Yudhishthira. You know, Dharmaputra, the eldest of the Pandavas. A beggar went to him and asked him for some help. Dharmaputra was doing some other job and he told the beggar, you please go back and come tomorrow. Bhimsena, the second of the Pandavas, heard what his brother told to the beggar. His brother sent the beggar back. And then immediately Bhimsena took a drum. He started beating the drum and he was going to the streets. Dharmaputra felt something funny, something fishy. He asked Bhimsena, hey, what are you doing? Why are you beating the drum and why are you going to the streets? Bhimsena told him, oh brother, I want to announce and inform the street dwellers or the people in the street that my brother has defeated time. You have defeated time. Why? Because you sent the beggar back. I'm asking you a question. Is there any guarantee that you will be alive to help him tomorrow by the time he comes back? Is there any guarantee that the beggar will be alive on this earth to come back to you tomorrow? Is there any guarantee that both of you will be living on this earth tomorrow? Is there any guarantee that you will have something to give to the beggar when he comes back tomorrow? Answers are no, right? So you have defeated the time. I want to inform and announce it to the street dwellers. Suddenly, Dharmaputra realized the mistake and he called for the beggar. And the beggar was called back, and Dharmaputra gave him some alms. My dear friends, this story of Yudhishthira, beggar, and Bhimsena is teaching us the answer to the question number 1. When should you serve the society? The time to give is now. Yes, during this pandemic distress, yeah, don't wait for an auspicious time to come. Don't go for an astrologist and look for the auspicious time to help anyone. The time to give back to the society and serve the society is now. Bill Gates, when he was dropped from Harvard, he didn't have any job and money. One day he was in JFK airport in New York. He wanted to buy a newspaper. A black-colored boy was selling newspaper in the airport. He called the boy. But he put his hand in his pocket and he searched the wallet. There was nothing in his wallet. So he told the boy, no, sorry, I don't have money. You go away. That newspaper boy gave a newspaper free of cost to Bill Gates. And he told, sir, read it. I can manage from my commission. After 3 months, the same thing again happened. Second time, the same boy gave him a newspaper. After some years, Bill Gates started Microsoft and he became the richest man, wealthiest man in the world. He came back to the same airport after 3-4 years and he wanted to meet that boy. He found the boy and he asked him, do you know me? The boy said, yes, sir. I gave you newspaper free of cost 2 times. And you are the chairman of Microsoft and you are the richest man in the world, Bill Gates. Are you not? Yes. Bill Gates told, my dear boy, you helped me and gave me newspaper free of cost twice when I was penniless and jobless. But now I'm rich. Ask me what you want. I'm ready to give you anything back for that great help. Come on, tell me what you want. I'm ready to give you. The boy smiled and said, Mr. Bill Gates, sorry, whatever you give, whatever millions you give to me today will not be equal to the cost of the 2 newspapers I gave you. I gave you the 2 newspapers when I was a poor boy. Even today, I'm very poor. I shared from my very small income. But today you are offering to help me when you become a rich man. Helping somebody when you become very rich and filthy rich is nothing, sir, compared to helping a person, a poor person, somebody else. Bill Gates was asked a question during an interview by a person, have you ever met somebody who is wealthier than you? Did you ever meet somebody who is wealthier than you? Bill Gates replied, yes, that black-colored newspaper boy who gave me newspaper and resented and rejected my help when I became rich person is definitely wealthier than me. My dear friends, don't wait for you to become a civil servant. Don't wait you to become the CEO of a company to help others. You can help even then. That is what you are doing while you are studying law and the students. Yes, you are helping the society. So to give to the society, the right time is now. Second one, how much to give? How much to give? That is the second question that you and me have to ask to ourselves. How much to give? Yes, friends. It so happened that she saw a street boy staring into the shop and from the outside, and he was not having a good woolen cloth. He was not having shoe. He was even not having good gloves. And the lady had time for the car to come, and she asked the boy, hey, what are you staring at? Suddenly the boy who awakened from his dreams, he told, Auntie, I am praying God to give me a pair of shoes from that shop. The lady felt very bad. That rich lady, took that boy, street boy, into the shop and went to the back office, took some water and washed the feet of the boy, and she asked the staff to take 2-3 pairs of good shoes, and she tried the shoes, 2 pairs of socks, and she purchased a pair of shoes for the boy, paid him and gave the extra socks to him to use later, and paid the bill, paid the check, and she came out of the shop. When she came out of the shop with that boy feeling so happy and delighted, the boy asked her, are you happy? Are you happy? The boy, holding the hands of that auntie, that madam, with the 2 hands, crying and weeping and sobbing so emotionally and bitterly, the boy asked a question to her, Auntie, are you the wife of Jesus Christ? That question, that only one question was sufficient enough for that madam to live the rest of her life happily. How much to give? You give very small, no problem. Rana Pratap Singh was fighting with the foreigners, the Mughals, and he was not capable. And one day in a war, he was almost killed, but he ran out of the war place and he hid himself in a mountainous area. And finally, he came back to his place. He lost his entire army, everything. His minister, Bibasha, carrying a cloth bag in his hand, went and told Rana Pratap Singh of Merwar, the king of Merwar, this is my entire earnings and savings in my life. My entire earnings and savings in my life. Take this money, form a new army and fight back. Bhimasha gave his entire savings to the king. Rana Pratap Singh formed another army and he fought against the Mughals with that second army. Bhimasha gave everything. I'm not telling you guys, you are the social service people, to give everything. You have to take care of your studies, your family, your dear and near ones. Yes, but at the same time, how much you can give, that you only decide. Give as much as you can. Do service as you can. There should not be a particular point or a limit to the service that a person can give. Question number 2. Number 3, what to give. One day, a boy went back from school to his home. It was a Saturday, and when the boy told his dad, "Dad, my teacher has given us an assignment. Tomorrow is Sunday, no? I have to go outside and find 10 people. I have to hug the 10 people, and I must tell them 3 sentences. Be patient. Life is great. I love you. Be patient. Life is great. I love you." By telling these 3 sentences, I have to hug 10 people. That is the assignment, and I have to give the names and addresses of the 10 people day after tomorrow when I go back to the school. Next day, it was torrential rain. The dad told him, don't go out. The boy insisted, "Dad, come on, let us go." They went to a shopping mall. The boy could complete 9 people. Again, it was raining very heavily, and the dad told, "Let us go back." The boy was very sad, and they were going back. On their way back to home, they saw a small house nearby roadside. The boy suddenly told his dad, Papa, stop the car. I think somebody will be there. I will go and finish my person." The daddy stopped the car. The boy went and he banged at the door. A lady, a middle-aged woman, 45 or 50, came out and she asked, "What do you want?" The boy told everything. He hugged the lady and told, "Be patient. Life is great. I love you." The lady started crying very loudly. The father of this boy went inside and asked, "Ma'am, what happened to you?" The lady narrated, she lost her husband 1 year back in an accident. Her children are outside. They are abroad. They never ask about her. They never inquire. They never come. None of the relatives come and ask for her happiness or her living situation. Nobody is taking care of her. And she decided to commit suicide. She was almost preparing the tie, the knot and the twine, the rope to commit suicide. That time only the boy went and told this. And she told, "The boy took me back to life. His love and hug, his advice to be patient, and his love to me, that gives me strength to live back." My dear friends, it's not necessary that you give 1 lakh rupees, 1 billion rupees, 1 crore rupees, 1 million rupees, nothing. What you can give anything, but give it with your heart. You can give a flower to a person. Yes, that is sufficient. You can give a smile to a stranger. That is okay. You can give a shoulder to a person in distress. That is okay. You can give a hand to a person who is in deep trouble. That is okay. I just want to show you the photograph of a great nurse whose photograph is there on the wall of fame of WHO, World Health Organization. If you go to the WHO headquarters, you can find the photograph of this lady. And the name of this lady is Lini Suresh, who died on 21st May 2008 in my state, Kerala, in northern part of Kerala, that is Calicut district, Perambra, and she died because she was treating the Nipah patients. You just think she was on leave, she was not doing well. But when the primary health center of Perambra was not having sufficient nurses, she was a nurse. She cancelled her leave and she went to service and she got that disease. And her husband was in Gulf and she had 2 children. And her husband and children could not even see the dead body of this lady, the nurse, this hospital nurse. And she wrote to her husband, "This is my goodbye to you. We will never meet. Take care of the children, marry again, and continue life. You are young. Goodbye, goodbye." My dear friends, what did he give? Linny Suresh has given her life to the people unknown to her. I'm not asking you to give the life. You need not be like the Adam Clayton in the YouTube band story, but what you can give, you decide. I was the district governor of Lions Club International during 2018-19 in 3 revenue districts of Kerala, Ernakulam, Alappuzha, and Idukki. One day, a friend of mine, a lawyer from Kumuli, Pyramid Bar Association, that black-colored gentleman called Shine Verghese, he told me that he met a girl with a 23, but born with a Thalidomide syndrome, no hands at all, from a very poor family. But she completed her 10th, her +1, +2, and graphic designing course, and she is working in a private press in Ernakulam as a graphic designer. And her dream is to become a driver and drive the car with her legs. She asked me, "Can you help?" I was the district governor. We filed a case before the Honorable High Court of Kerala. There are 6 people who were given license to drive a car without hands. One gentleman from Indore in India also, but no lady from Asia. And we convinced the Honorable High Court of Kerala about the extraordinary qualities of this girl. And finally, the Honorable High Court of Kerala gave an order, if she can produce a car that can be driven by her without hands, for your automatic car. And my dear friends, you can see the picture of that girl receiving the car of the chavi of the car, the key of the car from my hand with her legs. She stays in YWCA hostel in Chittoor or Ernakulam, and she started driving the car with the help of someone else. And on the last International Women's Day, even NDTV went to her and they took they shooted a video of this girl driving the car inside the compound. Her license is not yet granted inside the compound, and you will just see, you can also, I was so happy that I have given to a most deserving person. So him to give the answer is give to the most deserving person. And the name of this girl is Gilmore Marriott Thomas. I'm damn sure she is going to get the driving license, and she's going to be the first lady in Asia who will drive a car with her legs. What a great inspiration. Give without being judgmental. Don't be judgmental. Don't judge too much about the quality of the other person. Please give. I can just see you or show you a small video of 1 minute. Just watch the video. Yes, friends, there are many, many people like Gilmore Marriott Thomas who are really deserving the help of us during this COVID-19 pandemic or any other calamities and distress situations. So don't be judgmental. Give to the society and only give to those who really deserve our help. Now, second question, how to give? Again, another story for Mahabharata. Arjuna was always accusing Krishna or complaining to Krishna. Why you are always telling that Karna is better than me, Karna is wiser than me? You are always having 1,000 tongues to speak about the greatness of Karna. You are not actually speaking anything good about me. Why? Lord Sri Krishna one day told Arjuna, come with me, let us go for a walk. They reached a village. There were 2 mountains In that village, there were 2 mountains. Lord Krishna made the 2 mountains into full of gold. And he told Arjuna, you call the villagers and give this gold to the villagers. I want you to complete it continuously and finish. You have to finish the gold of the 2 mountains. You have to give the gold to the villagers. Go, start your work. Arjuna, with a chest up, went to the village and he called the villagers. Come on, guys. I'm Arjuna. You might have heard about me, a great warrior and an archer. I have a happy news to you. Come with me. I can give you some gold. Come on. So he was so proud and he was so happy and egoistic. He took the villagers and he started shoveling the gold into the villagers. After 1.5 days, he got totally strained and fatigued and tired. And even the 2 mountains of gold were asked like the same. He told Krishna, sorry, I'm tired, I cannot continue. Then Krishna called Karna. Lord Krishna called Karna. Karna, come here. These are the 2 mountains of gold. You are the owner of the 2 mountains. You have to give this gold to these villagers. Do what you want. Karna straight went to the village and he called the villagers and told, my dear villagers, look, see that 2 mountains. They are full of gold. That gold is your gold. Go and take as much as you want, but don't fight each other. Just by giving that instruction permission, Karna left the place. He did not wait there for the villagers to herald him, tell him, oh great, what a great man you are. He was never ready to listen to the praising words or the flatteries of the villagers or words of even gratitude and thanks of the villagers. He just left. Lord Krishna looked at Arjuna. Arjuna understood, oh my God, why did that come to my mind? When you give something, don't feel that you are doing something for your satisfaction or you are actually making the other person, you are getting this service from me, so I'm a great fellow. Don't do it for fanfare. Don't do it for getting your photograph printed in the paper. That is what actually some sort of the new generation wealthy people in our society are doing. They will do the service of 1 lakh and they will call the 15 channel people with them when they go for the service activity. My dear friends, as the district governor of Lions Club, I constructed 75 houses to the below poverty line victims who lost their dwellings in the 2018 Kerala flood. I raised around 5 crores rupees and gave them totally free houses. But I always made sure that never ever their self-esteem is to be questioned. Never ever we should treat them as they are beggars in front of us. So please understand. The receiver should not feel humiliated, nor the giver feels proud by giving. Let not your left hand know what your right hand gives. The Holy Bible says, let not your left hand know what your right hand gives. Charity without publicity and fanfare. Very, very difficult. Some people are very fond of names and tags and television appearance and newspaper photos. And I feel sorry for such people. They are not real service people in this society, I believe. They are all psychophants. That's what I believe. Charity without publicity and fanfare. Give with a grace and with a feeling of gratitude. Give with a grace and with a feeling of gratitude. So that is question number 5. Now, what should one feel after giving? That is again another question. Ekalavya gave his right thumb to Drona, and Ekalavya was about to die. Somebody asked him, did you ever feel sorry that you gave your right thumb as a Guru Dakshin to Drona? Why did you give that? Because he did not even teach you. He was your teacher in your mind only. Ekalavya told, once I felt what I did was really a mistake. People ask him, what was that occasion during which you during which you felt that you should not have given your right thumb as a Guru Dakshin? He told, when Pandavas killed Drona, telling a lie that Ashwatthama is no more. By telling a lie that his son is no more, Pandavas killed my Guru Dronacharya. That time I really felt, I should not have given my right thumb, because had I not given my right thumb, I would not have allowed anyone to kill my Guru. I would not have allowed anyone to kill my Guru. My dear friends, that should be the feeling. When you give something, that should be the feeling. Never ever feel repentance. Never ever feel regret. Oh God, why did I give that? I should not have given that. Oh, it was too much for my side. Never feel that. Give and never regret giving. Give and never regret giving. So I was asking you the question, when should one give? I told you the answer. Now is the right time to give. I asked you the second question, when you serve and give back to the society, how much you to give? You know, give as much as you can is the question, the answer I gave to you. What to give? Give anything, but give with your heart. A flower, a smile, or a love, or a shoulder, or your life, whatever it is. That is what that was answer to how much to give, what to give. Fourth question was whom to give. Give to the deserving people and don't be judgmental. Fifth question, what should how to give? Give without the publicity and fanfare. Feel happy that you have supported and served the community. That only will make you a real. I don't know what is sensitivity and sensitization all about, but that will only make you a real giver in the society. And what should one feel after giving? I told you, never feel regret. Now, let me remind you, my dear friends, give not out of compulsion, but out of inclusion. Somebody compels you. The government is saying that, okay, so company, you are a corporate giant, you have to give back to society this much. Hey, come on, you have this much and you must give this much. Oh, that is what, just like a taxation. My dear friends, don't actually give something just like a taxation rule. Give not out of compulsion, always feel it's a part of inclusion. You want to see the poor people included into the mainstream of our country, the social life of our country. Second one, giving is not a pretension, but an extension. It is not a pretension, my dear friends, it's an extension. It's an extension of your goodness inside. It's an extension of your broad-minded attitude inside. It is the extension of a generosity you are keeping inside. So it is not pretension, my dear friends. It is an extension of the good things, virtues, values, and good things inside. Give not out of repentance, but out of benevolence. Don't feel that, we all have two lives. What are the two lives? Come on, I'm telling a controversial statement. Hope great gurus like Kurian Joseph sir will agree with me. We all have two lives. Which are the two lives? The second life begins the moment we realize that the first life is going to end. The second life begins the moment we realize the first life is going to end. That time you will look back. Oh God, I lived 65 years, 70 years, 50 years, 45 years. I didn't give back to society anything. Now I have only 6 more years. I'm in the hospital bed. I have only 6 more months, or 1 more month, or 2 more months, or 1 more year to live. Oh, what can I do? I should have done something for the society last. My dear friends, if you want to live your second life happily, give out of benevolence. Don't give out of repentance. Start giving out of benevolence. You'll be happy to welcome the second life, maybe with some terminal diseases or some accidents or whatever happened. We don't know. God only knows. So give that way. Give not to acquire, but to require. But it is required. I told you. Please don't give. Oh, Sat organization has done things. Deepak Prakash has done things. Okay, well, good. Well and good. Whenever we do, even I am a person who works with the Lions Clubs International. I'm the past national president of JCI, Junior Chamber. Okay, all the service voluntary organizations do publicity, give publicity. Why? Because they want to inspire people to come up and do such things. But there are many people who never do that also. Individual donors don't go behind that. But organizations to establish the purpose for that they are existing, they may do that. Give not to acquire publicity, positions, awards. Many people give. Why? Because they want to appear for, they want to apply for a Padma award. So they have to give benevolence. I have given 5 houses. I have done 6 marriages. To get a Padma award, we are giving something. I believe it is not a real giving, my dear friends. Give not to acquire, but it is required. Give not what is left, but what is right. If somebody comes and tells that, hey, do you have used clothes to be given to an old age home? And husband will tell the wife, she will call her wife, hello, you please look whether there are some torn old clothes in our almirah or in our cupboard and give. What is that? Look for some torn old clothes. My dear friends, is it correct and right and proper on our part to give old torn clothes which are not usable at all to an old age home? Give the clothes that you can use because they are also human beings. Please don't give what is left, always give what is right. So these are the points I just want to remind you when you go for the great service, the great activity of social service in your life, in your future. I'm coming to the end of my presentation. I'm constrained to stop here because of time paucity. Had I been given another 15 minutes more, I could have completed, but I'm sorry, I have to stop here. You have an SB account. Most of you are having a savings bank account. Yes, I have savings bank account with 3-4 banks. Nobody can hide a savings bank account nowadays. They're all connected to our PAN card, Aadhaar card, and all things. I'm also a part of this organization because I joined in a giving account created and started by this wonderful organization. So do you have a giving account? You have an SB account, you know how much is the balance. You have a current account, you know how much is the balance. And I'm asking you, do you have a giving account? How much do you give back to society? I'm asking students. I don't want you to, don't calculate everything in pecuniary terms or monetary terms. I'm asking you to calculate your time or your help or support to the society. Do you have a giving account? How much is your allocation for ISR? What is ISR? There is something called CSR, Corporate Social Responsibility. I'm also a lawyer. I'm 92 batch law graduate, 90 batch law graduate from Government Law College, Calicut. But you all know there is what is something called a corporate rule, corporate law. So what is CSR? Corporate Social Responsibility. A company which is having a stipulated amount of profit of 300 crores for a continuous 3 years net profit must spend 2% of their net profit towards social activities. Spreading education, giving water facilities or food facilities. So companies are making profit from the money of the people. So corporates have to give back. It is a rule. It is a law in our country. Thanks to Manmohan Singh, the former Prime Minister who brought that rule in our country. Change in this Companies Act. So my dear friends, there is something called CSR. Now I am asking you guys, how much is your allocation for ISR? ISR means individual social responsibility. What is your allocation for ISR, your individual social responsibility? So friends, this is what actually I was talking to you about. You have to, I conclude with a wonderful quote by Steve Jobs, the most innovative CEO of Apple company. Steve Jobs once said, being the richest man in the cemetery doesn't matter to me. I don't want to become the richest man in the world when I go to cemetery. Why? Being the richest man in the cemetery doesn't matter to me. Going to bed at night, saying they have done something wonderful, that is what matters to me. Going to bed at night with a feeling and self-contentment inside, satisfaction inside, delight inside, ecstasy inside, thrill inside, feeling of satisfaction inside, happiness inside. I have done something wonderful during the day. That is more important. Remember the words of Steve Jobs. I wish all the very best to staff. And more than that, I wish all the very best to the leaders of this VMCI, a wonderful organization. I'm looking forward to meet you all. So my dear friends, again and again, I tell you, growing old, somebody told mandatory, Prerna told growing old is mandatory, but growing up is optional. Exactly. I tell you, my dear friends, age wrinkles the body. Age wrinkles the body. When we grow old, our body will have wrinkles. But quitting wrinkles the soul. Quitting wrinkles the soul. Never ever quit from this great noble cause of doing social service and supporting others. I wish all the very best to all of you. Looking forward to meet you again in some virtual platform or physical platform. Thank you very much. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Prerna, I'm not asking your permission. Just I'm recollecting, Vamanji, just recollecting the 1990 election. Just I want to say the same words. Jai Jai Vaman Kumar. Jai Jai Vaman Kumar. What was that? The huge slogans. What the entire Government Law College was flowing with this slogan. So at that time, that students organization, what we are following, we have no such support in the college. But only because Mr. Vaman Kumar was our chairman candidate. We succeeded in that election. Still I'm recollecting that days. I'm so happy, so excited to hear you. I think entire our team so excited. I'm sorry I didn't get given you the proper time. Extremely sorry for that. I'm not saying within this week, within few days, in the proper DMCI form, we'll go for a better, in a very super presentation from your side. Extremely thankful to you. And even if after 30 years, I'm recollecting each and every day what we have spent in college. Thank you very much for this and for time. In behalf of the entire team of DMCI and SAT organization. And Amanji, SAT and DMCI is not two. We are just working as a youth movement and to support DMCI. It's not two things.
Thank you. Okay.
Most of the people, everybody in SAT who are free, who are discussed here, who are put their thoughts, all are from SAT. Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. So before concluding, I would like to say something about SAT, that exactly what is SAT. So SAT is basically a citizens' initiative in lifting up the society. It aims to help the ones who are in suffering. For now, the short-term goal of SAT is to cope up with the problems that have arisen because of this deadly pandemic. At present, we have around 600 plus interns and volunteers with us, which are divided into different zones and committees. The aim of the SAT is to create a channel of networks and connect the NGOs and organizations that are working for the betterment of the nation, so that we are able to reach every nook and corner of India to solve the problems. SAT will be managed by 6 different committees, which are namely the Operational Committee, the Finance Committee, Legal and HR Committee, Communications Committee, Public Relations and IT. The volunteers and interns are placed in different committees according to their area of interest, thus contributing their bit for the development of the nation. We will focus on every strata of society and work for their welfare. Thus, let us all join hands to overcome the present situation and make our nation a Vishwa Guru. I would like to thank Justice Kurian Joseph Sir, Sir Alfonso Kannandanan, Sir K.C. George, Dr. Reshmi Ma'am, and all the other executive members of DMCI. I would like to thank Dr. Vinod Menon Sir, Deepak Prakash and Lakshmikant Sir to providing us the support and making SAT an initiative and a developing society. I would like to thank all my colleagues and the executive members of SAT. I would like to thank all the volunteers who are participating and helping us in making it a success. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. So I think we can move ahead with the end of the session.
Thank for all.
Thank
you, sir.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
It was a great session. Thank you, people.
Thank you, everyone.